guys. All right. We're good, man. This is cool, man. I've never had this many guys on at the same time here. So this is actually pretty cool. So you guys are the development team for virtual, correct?
For the most.
A big chunk of it, yep.
How many people are on the actual virtual development team?
7?
7 or 8.
Something like that, yeah.
And then a handful of others are play testers.
So Eric is still kind of running things more or less like that. I mean, I know he's doing better now. It's like that. So
yeah, he's been on injured reserve pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think Creed stepped back in to help out with that kind of stuff now too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Like a little bit of organization, a little bit of imaging, a lot of old time expertise from his experience doing it. It's definitely been helpful.
Yeah.
I think last time I spoke to him, he was like, he felt like he was coming back in a little bit to help out, obviously. And he's like, yeah. So it's like I went on vacation and I came back and I kind of have like a little bit of fresh legs now again. So it's kind of cool. Just kind of doing what he's being asked to kind of take over and do,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing new for him. So
I also get the feeling it's been easier on him since he doesn't have to do everything now. And before he felt like he had to do everything.
when we've done some of our the last episode we did a breakdown of virtual 2 and 3. We combined them together, and he really kind of let people know like how much of all the weight was on him because he was kind of doing everything at the time. And you can get burned out pretty damn quick like that. So it's kind of cool to see there's like a committee of you guys now. Do you guys like divide your stuff up, certain jobs, like everybody has certain areas they're supposed to take care of, or?
Yes.
More or less.
Like Evan, what were you in charge of for virtual 11A?
I have a feeling I probably play tested the most, if I had to guess. I designed a few of the new superstars were mine, and I play tested like when we started play testing pretty much right before COVID hit. So then once we got quarantined and I was laid off from my job, I was play testing all the time. And then John and I started play testing a lot. And that's where the most of our contributions came, was from our playtesting sessions. As far as like specific job, I don't do like the Photoshop or anything like that. I'm a moderator on the Discord, so I kind of sometimes in the go-between between the dev team and the community. I posted all the spoilers when we were spoiling the set, and that was a lot of fun.
What about you, John? What is your main responsibilities?
Rules.
You're the new rules guy.
Nate. Yeah,
that's right. Nate was my very first guest ever for VelaCard stuff. I was so stoked to have him on, and now he's like my go-to guy for doing breakdowns for each release. Him and Creed.
And justifiably so. He's got a lot of experience and knows a lot of the background stuff that, I mean, I've been playing since Premiere, and I have no idea half the stuff that he brings up in your videos.
Yeah, he's a plethora of information there. He really is. Yeah. Now, how long has 11A been out now?
2 months, less.
Yeah.
What's been the general feedback about it?
I haven't heard a thing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more feedback to the spoilers and the kind of spoiler shock, because we introduced some, pretty big things, especially like the change to the change rate, and stuff like that, where people were like, "Oh my God, this is going to destroy the game," and someone like Adam Cole's superstar ability, which on the surface seems like, "Oh my God, he's the next Piper," but in practice, it's like, no, he's actually pretty balanced. So I think that was pretty cool for us to see, like, the stuff we've been working with for months at this point, introducing it to people, seeing their reaction to it, and then once they actually got to use it, it's been kind of quiet because the set is pretty balanced.
So what was the major change that came about from 11A? And I'm assuming that's going to be continued on to 11B, some more stuff.
Oh, we've got some stuff up our sleeves, yeah. But the counter reversals absolutely will be the biggest change in the game. Because
agreed.
For
Puncher's chance.
the puncher's chance as well, but for how long has it been since Revolution of the Mind came out? It's obviously been over a decade, 12, 13
Oh, God,
years
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And
Yeah, that was
from
right.
like 2 sets after it came out, it was the dominant meta because you didn't have the deck space to run 3-step, 3 escape, 3 break. You had to run Revolution of the Mind in 90% of decks. And then when Legendary Defense came out, that became a secondary reversal base. The counters give you an entirely different way to build your deck. You can bring back no sell maneuver, oversell maneuver, raw and ready. The things that you weren't allowed to pack with Revolution of the Mind, you can pack with these now. And having 3 unique reversals, that's going to be Sting's best friend. It's Rene Dupree's best friend. There are a lot of random decks that were really badly hurt by Revo being the primary reversal base that now have a completely new lease on life.
Interesting.
Test gets 2 of each.
That's
Oh, yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
And I think the overturn is a big thing too, for 2 reasons. Number one, when it's overturned, it's 2 reversals. So now that's a stab against multi-decks. And on top of that, it goes to your ring, which means you're getting that 1 extra fortitude that you may need to move on to the next level of your deck.
Yeah, this is something we should actually talk about here too, is how that card evolved.
Yeah, how did that come about? What was the thought process in bringing that particular dynamic?
It was Eric's idea, and I remember it well because when it originally came out, it was a multi-reversal from everywhere. It was 2 damage, and it basically just said reverse a strike or grapple and end your opponent's turn. And this is where a lot of times when we get bitched at, oh, our card text is too big. This is why. When we started with this week, you can't do this. This is too broad. And I actually made this list of all the stuff that this card reversed. It's like drawing a blank, multis, this. And compared it to no sell and compared it to Rebel. It's like, we can't do this. This can only count as 1 reversal from hand. If we want to make it 2 an overturn, that's fine. But we also got to make it permanent so people can't abuse it. And it grew, and all of a sudden it became Striker Grapple, and then it became considered D0. And then when we played it as D0, I played it against poor Braun Strowman, and Braun Strowman cried because there goes this one good maneuver because it got stopped by this. So it can't hit specifics now. And you got to add more text. And then you got to add more text. And as you're feeling, you find out all this crap, all of a sudden you're like, oh, God, we got to put all this stuff on here. And boom, my God, the thing's got 2,000 words on it. But that's why.
But that's the whole reason. I think most common players out there, especially those who don't play virtual and coming into it for the first time, are like, well, it's too wordy. Well, first off, Raw Deal has always been wordy. Since the very beginning, it's been wordy.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times now, because it's virtual, so you can change things on the fly as need be and make revisions, you got to close those loopholes.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times,
I wish I could go back to those days of the short, punchy cards like maintain hold and stare down opponent.
Kayfabe.
Yeah.
Matt Striker,
Yes.
that, a card with a couple sentences.
Yeah. See other card for more information. What has been people's favorite thing to play right now as far as 11A? Like, what superstar?
The one I hear the most, I hear a lot of Shayna Baszler.
Yeah.
Is it
I've
because
seen a
she's
couple
popular or because that her ability is?
A little bit of both. It's popular. It fits her character on TV, and it's something pretty simple to play, and it's a simple perk. I'm going to throw chokes from ringside, and they're going to be protected by drawing a blank. And
I was going to say,
I'm going to throw it next turn.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's straightforward. My favorite in the set, and there's more than a little bit of ego here, is Aleister Black, because the original design for Aleister Black was mine.
Oh, nice.
But he is as wordy a superstar as I think we have ever created.
Well, side note, thank God we got him now before he quits.
Yeah. I would have found a way to shoehorn him in. I really wanted him in the game.
I think for me, I mean, again, it's a little bit of ego because the Undisputed Era, that Undisputed Era ability was the evolution of something that Creed posted in his cutting room floor, was the evolution of Enzo and Cast. So that started as Enzo and Cast, that switching ability. And then there was another in-between superstar that we were going to give it to, I think Sanity, before they broke up, but I have no idea. And then that eventually evolved into Undisputed Era. And I've seen it played a couple times. I haven't had a chance to play a lot of Raw Deal outside of play testing, but that's been one of my favorites personally. That's that flexibility, that ability to swap back and forth between different things and having all those options available to you. That speaks to me personally.
What
I
about
think
you,
that was
Evan? I'm
fun.
sure it's probably a little bit like something you created.
Oh, the ones I've seen played the most, I've seen a lot of Kyle O'Reilly. Um, Outside, like the Undisputed Era can pack all the guys with them and switch abilities, but I see a lot of him solo. I've played mostly the Fiend and the Iconics. And again, not to go with the ego thing, but the Fiend was majority my design, and Iconics I think started with me, and then Eric molded it a little bit, and then other people. Well, we'll preface this whole thing's a group effort.
Mhm.
So when
Mhm.
someone says this is my design, it's
No,
been touched by
it's okay to say it's your
10
design.
different hands.
It's okay to say it's
Yeah.
yours. Hey, I
Yeah,
know what it's
there's-
like. I developed 85% of Revolution 4. So I mean, it's okay.
But I will say
So,
there's
you
not
know.
a single card in this set or any other that I've worked on that hasn't had input from everyone on the team.
That's great.
And I will say, to give Scott some credit, Shayna Baszler, we barely had to alter her from his original design. I mean, he kind of presented this superstar to us, and we were like, that seems okay. And then we tested it, and it worked. So we just really all we did was clean it up a little bit and maybe add one or two support cards that weren't in his original design.
And it took me 15 minutes to get that, and most of that work in the 15 minutes was Googling for moves.
So you guys have your favorites and stuff like that, and you're hearing other things, but it didn't, from my reading, wasn't Adam Cole kind of like from the beginning going like, oh my God, this is fucking broken, kind of, sticker shock took over,
One
right?
person did that, and that was his side perk.
I've noticed,
Don't worry.
since I posted all the spoilers, and oftentimes the first person to react to them kind of dictates the next 20 comments.
Sure.
So when Adam Cole was posted and his ability, he can reverse. He basically ignores reversal restrictions essentially. And a lot of people, all of the only moves they play are bootlace, atomic lariat, German suplex. So when they see this guy that basically says, "No, I'm just going to play a regular revo revo of the mind from hand to your German suplex," they can't do that.
I
So
overshoot your mark of precision haymaker with him.
there you go. So the one of the first couple comments when we released the Adam Cole spoiler was, broken. Oh my God,
Yep.
there goes, RIP, my favorite game, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other people were like, oh yeah, I guess this is pretty bad. But like I said before, since it's released, I haven't seen anyone play as Adam Cole other than maybe me.
You guys all, I mean, you guys all play on Discord and stuff like that, right?
Octagon,
yeah.
Yeah, with that, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, do you guys see a lot of, 11A being played, or are people still playing some of the older stuff? I mean, how's it integrating with the old product?
Well, every game that I've like spectated on, I'll jump in just like if I see two guys playing a game, I'll jump in just to see who they're using, what they're doing, who's being played. I see a lot of 11A non-specifics more than I see the superstars for the most part. Like I said before, I've seen a couple Shaynas, a couple Kyle O'Reillys, but they're pretty straightforward. So maybe people are still digesting some of these superstars, but the support, the non-specific support, I see just like any other card.
So speaking of the non-superstar, there's definitely some meta changers in this in 11A. So outside, you've already talked about the counter reversals. What other cards came out in that kind of changed things?
Well, we had a bullet this set. You don't want to play me, and that's for people who are getting hit with interest of fairness, definitely. And I want to play the game, I believe, was the other one that bulleted. And that's there in case you have problems. I know I've victimized Scott a number of times with interest of fairness, so
Fuck that card.
so that's one thing. Scott mentioned a puncher's chance a bit, and I think Scott and Evan have worked more with this than them, so I'm going to let them take this one.
Oh yeah, that actually started as an Eric idea. It was supposed to be Power of the Fist, and it actually was the other way around. It was the more punches you got out, the more damage you got to do to you. I think it was a discard. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, but by the time I get these crappy punches through to make this work, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I kind of got the idea, let's reverse this. If there's more on the ringside, you could overturn to stop them. And this way you're hurting them either way, and it makes the blank punch or the dynamic punch or all those low end punches now they're kind of worth something. Because even if they do hit you with it, they're taking more damage than you're taking probably because you've got like one of the big boys out or something. And you can actually continue to throw the punches and literally have a puncher's chance because you're hurting them either way.
Interesting.
And that's just where that grew.
How are these meta changer type cards affecting older decks though?
Jerry Lawler loves it.
Well, there's a number of decks that are punch based that they like that.
I'm sure Hyde and Wright's gonna like it, and
Mhm.
yeah.
There's another one called Heated Exchange, which I think a lot of older decks are going to go back to and like. It protects your heat and blindside cards in your ringside pile from being removed from the game, which was for non-superstar specific stuff, which is a big problem where someone could be running a blindside deck or a heat deck, and if their opponent is running random, say, thrust knee lifts, then their heat and blindside is gone because it just gets removed from the game. This card will protect that. So someone like a Muhammad Hassan from Virtual 3, or I know JBL had a good heat deck for a while. You know, there's a number of those guys that are going to look at that and say, well, I'm in business again. I can protect slightly my heat cards from being removed from the game.
Not having to rely on Hell in a Cell.
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted to boost heat and blindside. You know, those were two kind of builds that we really said they're not that good. They should be good. Being able to play a maneuver from your ringside should be good, and they're just kind of not. So, you know, we as a group are like, what can we do? We can protect them. We can give them reversal restrictions. We can get, you know, opponent can't play these kind of reversals when you have this many fortitude or anything like that. So that was another thing we were looking at.
And then like my notes also tell me, thank you for Brian sending me these notes. You had like some for less popular archetypes, which was like, you know, Major Announcement and Raw Allegiance and SmackDown Allegiance, and that's value.
Yeah. And you were just mentioning the SmackDown Allegiance, which is the card I was going to draw attention to. Are you ready for a good time? I have serious trouble playing high risk decks because I never have enough room to pack the setups. And I never packed the SmackDown Allegiance because it costs too much to use. So we have one card. Obviously, there are superstars where it would be completely and utterly busted, which is why, say, Eddie Guerrero can't pack it. You can't pack it with Boston. But it turns, this is just the beginning, into the best setup card in the game. You have it every turn. You can throw it every turn. It's active. So you don't have to make space for a ton of them in your deck. You get it back automatically as long as you remember to move it. It counts as the lead-in for basically every SmackDown high risk, as well as a ton of others. And it makes the Allegiance cheaper too, just, you know, because the card wasn't doing enough to begin with.
Interesting. Yeah, I never played those before, so I have no idea what the hell they did. Go ahead.
The SmackDown Allegiance was a very expensive one-time continue your turn. I think the cost was discard 3 and overturn. And I think that was a big part of that.
Yeah, and good time cuts it down to discard 2, overturn 2.
So in addition, you guys are introducing a whole bunch of new types of cards now for people to build decks in different ways. I mean, this must have taken a lot of play testing to kind of see how this integrated with all previous, not just virtual, but all of Raw Deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was there a lot of tweaking going on here to kind of make things happen? I mean, I'm sure there was.
Absolutely. I know that in my playtesting sessions with John, he playtested Good Time a ton. Mm-hmm. And then he'd either just totally destroy me or something else would happen. And then we'd chat for like half an hour after the match being like, what about this? What about this? Oh, do you think, you know, Shane McMahon with this card? That sounds disgusting. And then he would build Shane McMahon with this card and it would be disgusting or it wouldn't be. And we were like, well, he's not unbeatable. He's totally beatable. So it can't be that bad. So it was a lot of just back and forth, you know, and then once we figured out what we wanted to do, we would present it to the playtesting group and be like, we tested it like this, it didn't work, so we tried it this way and it was a little bit better. What do you guys think? And then they would all go off and play test it in their different ways. And it kind of ran like a pretty well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it was funny. There were 3 things that I think Evan and I had back and forth on constantly. It was Good Time, and we tested that 8 ways from Sunday. It was Puncher's Chance, which I ran in about 12 different decks, and it was Roderick Strong.
Oh,
We were going to save that one for a little later when we start talking about superstars.
We can save that, but I'm just leaving it out there. There was a lot going back and forth with Roderick Strong.
I put a specific thing in the notes to talk about him, but whatever we want.
What am I beating?
Hey, let's start with him, man. Let's break down these superstars here. Start with Roderick Strong.
Okay, so in every virtual set that I've been a part of playtesting, there has always been at least one superstar that gets massive divided opinion across all of the testers. You can have 4 different testers and they will come up with 4 completely different results. In this set, Roderick Strong was that guy. I know Scott tested him a lot early. I think he said he was fine, but we found something later that Evan found. And this is part of having the bigger group that has helped make the set more balanced, is that people are finding different things with different styles of play. You know, Scott found one thing, or Evan found one thing, or somebody else on the team found another thing. And we all come back and compare notes and be like, and it's like, okay, well, show your work, what deck you show. It's that kind of ongoing thing that we've had going on. I think Evan and Scott and I all tested Strong, had varying different results. My Roderick Strong test deck was horrible. It lost every time.
Yeah, I had a Roderick Strong that had a technical maneuver reversed about 32 consecutive times. Kevin never rage quit a game in Allentown until that.
Meanwhile, I faced a Roderick Strong deck that might as well have been Prime Eugene or Piper. No matter how it was built, I got obliterated by Roderick Strong. There was nothing I could do.
The Roderick Strong I built, which was honestly nothing special. It wasn't like next level. I'm playing chess, he's playing checkers. It wasn't anything. It was just, here's a couple moves that I think would be good in him, and I would like 3-turn him, and then there'd be like silence on the Octagon chat, and then it was just basically like, what the fuck was that? How did that happen? So then we would then go on to Discord and we'd say, well, Roderick Strong just destroyed this person. And then Scott would come on and be like, I just lost 8 straight matches with Roderick Strong. And I know that Scott's a good player and Scott knows how to build a good deck. And the fact that we were getting such different results, it was just weird. So at one point, relatively close to the...
What was that,
relatively,
Scott?
I was trying to push more the theme of the deck, and at that point it was technicals and breakers. And I might as well have thrown the cards at Kevin and let him just catch them because they would have been more useful.
the Roderick Strong that went into playtesting was kind of loosely based on the Crippler. You know, the Crippler, when his opponent successfully plays a move, he can go search for a move of the same type. But Roderick Strong, the original ability was, when he reverses a move, he can go search for a move of the same type. And so we were like, oh, well, that, you know, you reverse a grapple, you go get a German suplex. You reverse a strike, you go get a bootlace. You know, so we thought the cheese factor might be a lot. And I built that deck, and it was a lot. And then he had a pre-match effect that did another thing that was, in my opinion, really good. And then I would focus on, I had games where I didn't use the ability at all, and I was just playing with his support, and I was like, I'm not going to search my ability just to see what happens, and I would still just obliterate. So and the fact that Scott and I were getting such different results, and Brian as well, I at one point, relatively close to release, maybe like 3 weeks out, I was like, guys, this isn't working. The fact that we're getting such different results means like the machine is broken. So I was like, let's just start over, give him a relatively basic ability that meshes well with the Undisputed Era because they can use his ability as well. And I said, if he sucks, then we'll make him better next set. I said it's a lot easier to make someone better than it is to tone them down after the fact.
Yeah.
And that was
And it
something
gets
John
people
and
a
I,
lot. Yeah, people
That
get a
was
lot
something
madder when you have to take them back down a step.
Yeah, I mean that's number one complaint about virtual from people's like, yeah, you guys, you fucked with my Piper, you screwed over my JBL. Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation in many different episodes before, it's like that. So the bottom line is you can never please everybody, so it doesn't matter. But I mean,
we say that, but even the stuff we revised with Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, nobody seemed upset by that.
I think they realized just how far over the edge Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe were, and Charlotte as well. I want to make a brief mention of that.
Yeah, well,
They were the ones who we pulled back the most because they had to be. We knew they were too good.
I was just using that as a comparison that people screamed about Piper being kicked back, but yeah, we just did it to two other guys who were pretty top end, and nobody seemed upset about it.
And popular too. They're guys that are on the network constantly. For those who are still fans of the product, you still see them every week. And we toned them down, and there was no screaming.
I will say part of the thing that's going on there is most of the people who really freaked out about the shenanigans cards and about us pulling back on the harder stuff, they don't play anymore. They like they'll say, this is terrible. They'll have spoiler shock. You're ruining the game. Everything's horrible. Well, when did you play a game last? 12 years ago. Really?
2 days later, they're selling the collection on Facebook.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a lot
for
of
the rest of us.
Because I also run the virtual Raw Deal Facebook page. So when I would post spoilers on there, I would also share that post in the Raw Deal Facebook page, which is mostly classic only players.
Correct. Yeah.
So when they see, we're nerfing Chain by, if you have 4 or less cards, you can overturn instead of discard. And they were like, oh my God, Chain is dead. And we're like, no, it's just a different way. That's
really been the case with every release, even back in the Comic Images days. When they introduced Chain for the first time, it became like, oh my God. I mean, God, even back for Backlash decks, this is ruining the game. I mean, it's just, you're never going to please everybody. But the game just continues. Here we are. It still continues and thrives. We may not have the same numbers we had, 15 years ago, but the game still thrives. Matter of fact, there's a lot of people coming back because of virtual. There's a lot of guys who are coming in for the first time, but there's a lot of old school guys who haven't played since oh God, I haven't played since, Velocity, or I haven't played since Vengeance, like that. Now they're coming back and they're playing now. They're giving it a shot, which is great. So
it's phenomenal to see. I mean, virtual may not be for everybody, but we welcome as many people as want to.
I mean, hey,
try it out.
Divas Overload wasn't for everybody.
It wasn't for anybody.
Hey, Back to Basics was Divas Overload. I love that part of it.
Thank you for proving my point, Brian.
Speaking of Back to Basics, there's we made a Cole Calls It Right throwback action this set, which basically, when opponent plays a move, he can discard 2 cards, or else his move is -1 damage for every other move in his ring listed on a feud. So someone who plays Back to Basics sees that and says, oh my God, Back to Basics, thanks for killing Back to Basics. Haven't heard one word since.
I mean, if you're packing that as a mid-match action, then you probably have extra mid-match space to spare. I'll be honest.
Exactly.
Or somebody's doing something that you are deathly afraid of.
Yeah.
So you guys basically almost rewrote Roderick Strong last minute.
Yeah, that's actually
2-3 weeks out, maybe.
The only thing that stayed was the promo thing.
right, because that was the tie into the era.
Yeah, that was the theme for the era.
All of the Undisputed Era guys, their abilities are for the most part, they wrap around the promo ability. So part of Roderick Strong's original ability was when you promo, you can put 0 in hand and then pick up non-unique from ringside. That stayed. What changed was the being able to search for a move. That got changed to when you reverse your opponent's card from hand, promo 2. I said that's basic, and it lets him pick up a card anytime he reverses from hand. And if we need to bump it up next set, we can bump it up really easily.
But at that point, you're pretty much just building around his support cards anyways. So
yeah.
And then speaking of Undisputed Era, it's like let's talk about them. Where did that come from? I mean, we talked about it came from Creed's cutting room floor with Enzo and Cass like that, but how did it developed?
I mean, at first that was just kind of what it was. It was like I always thought it would be a good idea to have in the game a team that you felt like you tagged in and out. Like that was the origin of that particular idea. It came out and there was a lot of changes that had to be made to it because I believe originally it was just you could get all four. I'm sorry?
It was impossible to switch.
That too, but you also could add all four at once in the original version. So if you got that far, you could have a promo where you put cards back at the bottom of your arsenal and picked up cards and removed from game. But you could do all four of them at once. So that part had to be obviously toned down. That would have been ridiculous.
Seems a little bit abusive.
Yeah.
But like
now you can have them all out, but you have to pick an ability.
Yeah, but now like Scott said, we also had the games where because it required a reversal from hand to get a guy out there, sometimes you had games where you just got shut out and you got nobody out there, which was silly too. So that's why we added the line on the bottom of, I believe it was Shock the System, that if you're getting beat and you have nobody, you can flip one out there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you compared it to like the Spirit Squad or the Nexus, other groups that had that similar mechanic, they had no problems doing it. It was just too hard for them in contrast to the other two. So it was a way to make them more kind of in line with them.
Yeah, Nexus just gets to switch every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever they want, they can switch all the time. Spirit Squad, you have to play gimme an S, gimme an I, they had to play that card. Whereas the Undisputed Era, you had to earn it a little bit to get the guys out.
Mm-hmm.
Which is in keeping with the Undisputed Era because they're all legitimate wrestlers, whereas the Spirit Squad, not exactly.
Well, plus,
and the Nexus, not all of them were.
With Undisputed Era, you can get all four guys out, but you only get one ability per turn.
Gotcha.
But you also kept them in line with the other guys because you only got one of their abilities too.
Yeah. Whereas
though you do get additional benefits on our era and No Man's Land if you have multiples out.
Yeah, and some of their specifics were worded in a way where where in the past the card would say, if you are Roderick Strong, this card is +5 fortitude and +5 damage. But with the Undisputed Era, we had to add, when Roderick Strong is revealed, this card is +5 fortitude and +5 damage.
Oh, gotcha.
So that way, regardless of if you're the Undisputed Era or if you're just Roderick Strong, you would get this effect.
Yeah.
But it also gives us the flexibility to say, Bobby Fish may do this once during any turn. It's not when he's revealed. It's if you are Bobby Fish, you get that. So there's some ability to tweak it and make sure that things that are just for the solo guy are just for the solo guy. Things that the entire group can have, the entire group can have.
So speaking of Bobby Fish, let's move to him.
Probably.
My notes tell me that he probably has the most tweaking of any one superstar. That's what my notes say.
He's probably the weakest superstar in the set, if I had to guess. I had pretty good luck with him in playtesting, because he can recover RFG cards. He can recover his Revolution of the Minds, and he can recover these other cards. And if you use from NXT to WWE, you can recover an additional card. You lose the NXT Allegiance, which we didn't talk about yet, but you get an extra card. So I built him with NXT to WWE, recovering 2 RFG cards. His backstage reduces damage. So my brain went to Not in Front of the Kids, mid-match action from, I don't recall what set, but it's a classic card where you remove 2 cards in your ringside from the game every turn before your draw segment, and all maneuvers are -4 damage. So I said, all right, I'll remove 2 cards. I'll promo. I'll recover 2 RFG cards that I just removed from my ringside. Your moves are -4 damage, minus another 1. And if it's a strike, it's minus additional damage. So you're throwing a -6 damage strike at me, and then I play clumsy opponent.
Not in Front of the Kids is Unforgiven, by the way. Thank you, Tony. Your site's very useful.
Stop!
Try to make it useful. Yeah. Every once in a
But-
while, I'll jump in the boards. Like someone had asked about all the Mankind cards, like what's all the virtual stuff and where they come from. I just happen to I go, oh, link it right to the VelaCards page for that because we have it all listed there.
But in the grand scheme, I'd say he's probably the weakest superstar
But
in the
that
set.
sound, I mean, all those dynamics that you put together, it sounds like he's not that weak. I mean, it
No,
sounds
I
like
mean,
He's not. I mean,
Com-
this is
coming from the
relative.
He's not
Yeah,
going to look bland at first look.
and coming from a side of someone who's played against Bobby Fish, when you feel like you really accomplished something if you actually pin him, it's a great giant thing to do. So
He-
I mean,
He also has a really sneaky reversal. The fish hook reverses any multi-card. And I remember one playtest game with Brian, he played, I think, Here Comes the Cavalry, which is a
yeah.
which is a must-pack staple card, and anyone who can pack it. And I said, well, fish hook, good game.
yeah, that hurt. That really hurt.
There went the cavalry.
Well, it's fish hook, man. You don't want to get caught with that. That's gonna hurt. So, but
Mhm.
quickly before we go back to the next superstar, then, so you mentioned the NXT Allegiance, versus some of the anti NXT cards. Let's talk about that.
Right. So coming into this set, one of the things that we noticed as a general rule of play is that NXT had a very strong presence, and there was no downside to it. You've heard it mentioned from NXT WWE, that was one part of it. NXT Arrival, the pay-per-view event, which came out a couple sets ago, that was unrivaled acceleration for your maneuvers for any NXT superstar. So two of the things we wanted to talk about was, on the one hand, we want to tone this down a little bit. And on the other hand, when we tone something down, we usually give back. For example, Piper. He's gotten a lot of cards since his ability was toned back. So there were two different aspects of it. One of them was a card called You're Just Developmental. And that had a two-piece effect on NXT superstars. First, there was a discard at the end during the first turn of the game. So you get penalized in your hand size. And then there's the ability for it to kind of steal an NXT card during your opponent's turn. You basically remove, I forget the exact cost of the ace, but you pay cost.
It's overturn 2 in RFG developmental.
Right. And then you'd get to do whatever it is that the opponent was doing that had an NXT logo. So you could get an instance of KO Stunner, for example, which we'll talk about later, or, one of KO's actions. Samoa Joe's Destroyer, you could get a copy of that at one time.
The idea was basically, you're just developmental. I can do this just as well as you can.
Makes
Bingo.
I
sense.
kind of wish we had named it Vince just doesn't see it in you, because that was dramatic.
Well, at one point, I think Scott, you might have suggested renaming it Not Today, Pal. Throwback.
We're going to save that card name for something else later, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
No good card
So-
name goes hidden for too long.
So with the NXT Allegiance, we wanted to present kind of an alternate build for NXT. So to get away from my thought was, from NXT to WWE implies that this superstar has been called up to the main roster because they went from NXT to WWE. So I said, with this NXT Allegiance, they're staying on Wednesday nights. They're going to stay in developmental. So they shouldn't get from NXT to WWE. And then that expanded to, well, they also shouldn't get Arrival because they've already arrived.
Plus they weren't on
And-
the pay-per-view.
And we said, they don't get Raw, SmackDown, Classic WWF, ECW, WCW, or NWO cards on top of it.
You really just shoved them right into
No,
you're sticking in
it's-
NXT, and that's where you stay.
Yeah, if you are in NXT, you are in NXT. That is what you get.
And that did cause an oh shit moment. We all realized those really good heel cheater reversals had a WWF logo on it that nobody thought about for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, shocking
I've
interference
packed a few
and
shocking
Jive Soul
interference with
Brother.
that
That's
before.
right.
Play.
That's right.
But
Yeah,
the bonus that they get, all their NXT pre-match and mid-match don't take up slots in their ring. Which some, like Charlotte has like 4 NXT pre-match or something like that. So that's 4 free slots that she doesn't have to worry about if she goes that way.
You said slots. So back to the superstars. So we've already pretty kind of talked about Adam Cole already. We've done took care of Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong, Undisputed Era. I mean, let's continue the Raw deal curse continues in that release, which is breaking up tag teams.
Well, just a 1 second.
Sure.
Just a 1 second talk about Adam Cole. We actually made his ability better than what it originally was. Originally, it was your reversals count as unique or played from Backlash, and maybe there was one other thing,
And
that was it.
It was 2 removed from game originally.
Right, it was remove 2 in your hand from the game, and then your next reversal is considered unique or played from Backlash. So we tested a couple games like that, and I was like, it's not. And if you play against someone who's like dynamic, which they're just throwing vanilla moves at you all game, Adam Cole's ability doesn't do anything. And it still didn't hit. It still didn't hit some other pretty good cards. So then I suggested, let's also make it unique, non-unique, hybrid, like basically cover all your grounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only major one that we didn't put on there was D0.
Only plays, right. So if you're only playing someone that plays bootleg, German suplex, atomic lariat, then you show up with Adam Cole. That is when Adam Cole's ability can take over. And that the general idea, we try to logically link these abilities with these characters, was Adam Cole always gets out of these situations. He always somehow weasels his way out and wins the game.
Yeah, that was what I put in this forum, wasn't it? It's like that sneaky son of a bitch finds a way to reverse the damn thing, doesn't he?
Right.
Exactly.
We finalized this around the time where Adam Cole, I think it was last Survivor Series, where he was doing a lot of main roster matches with guys like Daniel Bryan. And that was kind of how he wrestled at that time, his defense as offense. It's kind of Ric Flairish in a way, and that really is personified in this ability.
Although, funny side story about that ability, I almost keep forgetting about it. I was playing you, Brian, when this happened. And I never used this ability, and I kept forgetting about it, and you played that damn Oscar lock. And I forgot about his ability when I had the sloppy in my hand, and I lost the stupid playtest game.
Yeah. If that cost you the game, you could have stopped the Oscar lock with a sloppy.
Doing the overturn, I'm like, son of a bitch. He's like, what?
You just weren't ready for Oscar.
Yeah.
I could have
You could have been ready, but you weren't.
I was ready, but it was late.
So I was going to talk about breaking up tag teams here, and
yes.
the Raw deal curse has continued again, and somehow they broke up the Iconics. You guys did. What the hell is wrong with you guys?
I'm sorry. I love the Iconics.
Speaking of Vince doesn't see it in you.
Yeah, you got to be joking me.
So the Iconics were kind of early in the development of V11. Eric and I would chat on Facebook a lot, and we were, we both love the Iconics. We got to get them in, because I feel like, we kind of got the same thing with the Undisputed Era, is if we don't get them in now and then they split them up, we'll have to justify putting them in the next set. Thankfully, we kind of finalized the Iconics before they actually did split up. But I think they're a ton of fun. They're one of my favorite. They might be my favorite superstar out of this set. Not the best, but they might be my favorite. And it's fun. I think they're the most fun deck in the set, because they get their annoying non-unique trademark finisher that they can play 2 of at the time. A lot of their cards revolve around the number 1 and 11, because they're the closest thing to the letter I we could find. And I just think they're a ton of fun.
So my notes say that they have their own win condition.
They do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they have to get 11 Iconics in their ring to win.
All 11.
Yeah.
The most I've had in my ring, I think, is 7 or 8. So I still haven't hit that win condition.
Yeah. It's been done in play testing, but I haven't heard any reports of it successfully being pulled off in the wild, but it's there.
I think when it was done, the move was overpowered too at that point, wasn't it?
Yes, that was going to be my other point, is that other than the ones that we've talked about already, Iconics is the most edited card in this set. We went back and forth on that card. That was another one that didn't get finalized until the last week or two of the set because we could not strike the right balance. At one point, it could only be reversed by D1 or D11 cards, period. No D0, nothing larger than D11, none of them.
And I don't think this is.
There were like 5 reversals in the entire game that could stop it at that point.
That's crazy. When you start
But
limiting your reversal base, it makes it hard.
It could be reversed as if it was a strike,
At that point, yes.
which
Yeah.
really didn't. It just meant you could play Revel of the Mind, and that's about it, you know. And it had a
two
damage
encounters.
modifier, so it would increase its damage for every other copy in your ring. So at some point, you're throwing a 9 damage card that can only be reversed by like 1 card in the history of Raw Deal. So that became, you know, we could tone that down a little bit.
Yeah, just slightly.
And you know, you mentioned win conditions. We added a couple win conditions in this set. Schoolboy, which was one of my cards, which I was, you know, I've wanted in the game since Backslide and Inside Cradle came out. Schoolboy just seemed like a natural fix to reverse submissions. So we added a really interesting pin condition to that, where you have to have less fortitude, but you have to have more than 20, and your opponent has to have 10 more than you, or something like that. And then they reveal the top 2 cards, and if they're the same card, then they lose.
And it's the first Tuesday of the month, and
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, yes.
it's
I
difficult to
almost-
hit, but yeah.
I almost hit it against John in one of our
Mhm.
playtest games. I almost was so close. It's like he revealed the top 3, and then like the next card he drew was the card that needed to be the second card or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah,
shame.
the fourth card matched one of the first 3, but the
Yeah.
first 3 did not.
And then sending the crowd home happy was another pin
Mhm.
condition, which is the I have a major announcement support card. If you have 10 or more maneuvers from I have a major announcement in your ring, you win the game. So it made I have a major announcement, you know, not a
It gave you,
coaster.
it gave you a reason to like an end game. It gave you a point that you wanted to actually do this. I mean, before that, it was what, Superplex? That was kind of the end game for major announcement.
Yeah.
Other trademarks.
You know.
Frankly, if you got 10 of them out anyway, you deserve to win the game.
I almost did it on that Adam Cole game, that because my Oscar was major announcement. It came close. It was this close. I think I had
One
9.
of
Right,
one of my
sorry.
one of my Roderick Strongs used major announcement because there's so many breaker maneuvers in the major announcement text that and Roderick Strong's ability naturally gears him towards breakers. And at one point I had like 15 moves out, but I had already played the action, so I couldn't use the pin condition. Anyway, Iconics. Anything else?
yeah, they seem like a lot of fun though, from what I gather like that, and it's the fact they have their own pin condition, and you're playing on the 1s and 11s, like it just seems kind of fun.
They are, and I hated the wrestlers, and I like playing that deck.
Yeah, they can tank. They can tank very well.
Mhm.
And they have an ability that overturn 11 and then shuffle in 11, which you have to really be careful on when you use that ability, because you don't want to use it early because you're going to need it later, but you don't want to use it too late because then you'll have like 3 cards left in your arsenal and you have to shuffle these cards in. So not only are they fun, but there's a lot of strategy involved in them. And they almost always have a move to play, which I look for.
It's funny. I like using it early with them to get the Iconics in the ringside.
Sure, yeah.
Then we talked a little bit about Aleister Black, a little bits like that, but where did he come from as far as like development wise?
He came straight out of the fantasy card forum. The original design of Aleister Black was before I was part of the development team. A friend of mine, the friend who actually got me into the game, and I decided one day we're just going to put together a card set for Aleister Black. And the first thing was, well, okay, we can't justify 666 for this guy. There's no way we could justify a 6 superstar value. So 616, that's the alternate number of the beast. We'll start there and just run with it. And part of my design philosophy is to take phrases associated with them and then turn them into mechanics. So I came up with no man is ever truly good, no man is ever truly evil. How do you represent that on a card? Well, you can pair face with cheater or heel with fan favorite, but not face fan favorite and heel cheater, which is what you would normally get. And he could get all of those cards in the game. And then playing off of our truth, at a certain point in the game, he can switch alignments, take everything out and put all of the other cards in. So much like the Iconics and much like actually a lot of superstars in this set, he's very difficult to kill because he has a lot of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other effects in there that work the same way, since he has that thing where he just jumps into the ring, sits cross-legged. We gave him a throwback version of sit right here and bide my time after testing it and realizing that giving him 3 of the original was not a good idea. And in fact, the original was never a good idea because it's worded so badly. So we took a moment to fix that. That card wasn't originally in the set. But the whole point of it was, how do we first off take who he is and convert that mechanically into cards? And then the next iteration was to take another aspect of his character, mostly the strikes, mostly the kicks, and bulk that up. So we integrated, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I think a lot of these cards were yours. Creed suggested integrating some ideas that were originally in a deck you constructed for Kenta, for Hideo Itami.
I believe that most of that was Creed's, but yeah, we did put a lot of the Itami/Kenta concepts into Aleister Black when it became clear that Itami was no longer going to be working with the WWE.
My notes say that he has a lot of like unique mechanics for extra cards. He's got unique trademark finisher reversal, unique reverse plunge.
So the face cheater thing and the heel fan favorite thing that John was talking about, the first thing is you start, like, you have your 60 card deck, and then you have a stack of these aligned cards on the side, but you can't have any copies of them in your deck. And you get to shuffle them in. You pick one side or the other, and you shuffle them into your deck as part of the start of the game. So I think you could get up to 79 or 80 cards in your starting deck if you really stack all into one of the 2 alignments.
I think the most I ever got was 75, but I think you could probably go a little further than that.
You can. I think it was 78 or 79 that I got it to. If you do face cheater, like, it really starts to add up because you got all the good heel cheater stuff from Saturday night's main event that you could throw in there and take it as cheater. So it's like you get 3/4 of it. As to the mechanic, the unique mechanic, I'm going to call attention to Black Mass as a reversal, because it's one of the first times I think we've done a discard reversal in the virtual set.
Mm-hmm.
So as a reversal, you still need the whatever 34, I think it is, to play
25.
it. 25. But then you, instead of playing it to the ring as a reversal, you discard it and they overturn non-damage card effect for 6.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a repeatable action reversal if you choose to use it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Once you get to the fortitude, obviously.
Yes.
I play tested against Aleister Black a lot, and that was kind of I called it payback for all the Roderick Strong beatings, because
it was very much that.
Aleister Black just whipped my ass every time. There was one time where I was test, and I was so close, but I ended up losing, and that was the closest I ever got to getting anywhere near beating Aleister Black. So
I think what killed you on that game was you had me down to about 2 cards in Arsenal, and then I triggered 3 sit right here and bide my time.
Yeah, and you recovered. You got like 48 cards in your arsenal, and I was down to I had like 1 card in hand and like 3 in arsenal. And I was like, I just play anything, I lose. But for Roderick Strong, so in general, the way we design superstars is we'll come up with like the roster for the set, and then we'll have brainstorm sessions, which is, here's Evan's idea, here's Scott's idea, and here's John's idea. And then whoever is in charge, whether Eric or Creed for the majority of this set, they kind of pick and choose, or they go, we're going to go with Evan's design for him. So with Aleister Black, we had John's idea, which eventually became the set, and Creed suggested, well, we have this Hideo Itami design all set, so they both revolve around kicks and stuff like that, so we could try that. And then I chimed in and I said, that Hideo Itami build could be used for anyone, any striker really. And I said, this Aleister Black build is unique to him, and if we don't use it for him, we'll never be able to use it. So I suggested going with that route, and then it ended up biting me in the ass because I've never beat him.
One day.
Someday.
In general, that's how design has worked in the past too. Like when Creed was at the helm, he would do a lot of that. I really like, Brian's ability for such and such, but these cards from this guy are also really good too. So let's just kind of smash them together and sand off the finer edges.
One time where that did not work out was for the revival for the last set. We had kind of 4 different ideas, and then we tried to put them all together onto one, and it just didn't work. And the community let us know that it didn't work.
Honestly, we could have told them before we released it that it didn't work. We were up against the gun.
Was that Scott?
Hopefully,
it did lead to a lot of the blindside love that came out, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and hopefully with 11B they get a couple nice support cards. So I think they'll be pretty good now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
we'll help them out.
So then outside of their tag team, the Iconics, but we only have one solo female artist in this one. Who wants to discuss her?
Scott.
Shayna.
Shayna was pretty simple, actually. It was like, oh, we should put her in because she's good. She's been the NXT Women's Champion for a while. She does a lot of submissions, and it just kind of wrote itself almost. It was just right there, and it's like, okay, she chokes people. Let's have her play chokes, but the chokes kind of suck. What if she played them from ringside? Okay, they're kind of cool from ringside, but they have a lot of shitty drawbacks on them. Let's make them blank. And it just kind of popped itself out right there. Oh, she's got MMA stuff. Give her the 2 MMA cards that everybody else has. It just kind of was right there, and there wasn't really much work. I wasn't kidding when I said I did it in 15 minutes.
And the funny part is that a lot of the stuff that we did in that 15 minutes, or that Scott did, ended up having transitions to other guys. Like, obviously Ronda Rousey, but Shayna also does the arm stomp that Pete Dunne does.
Yep.
Why don't we put another Pete Dunne logo on that?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on.
Yeah, and the most dominant woman in NXT. I'd say the most time we had to spend tweaking anything for Shayna was figuring out how to balance that card for Asuka.
Yeah.
She was,
and I've that's a card that the community has been very favorable towards, the most dominant woman in NXT for Asuka in particular, because Asuka was another one who, she was okay, but she wasn't that great. But now with the support she's gotten, I think she's very good.
Oh yeah.
That V11B support will help her tremendously too.
My favorite thing that Scott did for Shayna was on Submission Magician, which is kind of the now you see it, now you don't theme, where she can flip a submission and then play a card and it's considered a blank submission, regardless of what it is. She magically turned this card into a submission, and she's going to hurt you with it.
It just became something cute to kind of do with it that kind of fit the name of the card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She seems very straightforward like this. There's no bullshit with her. Just like it's an easy build. This is what you're doing. When you're playing against her, you know what you're up against.
This bitch gonna choke you.
I had when I
Some people are into that, Scott. Some people are into that.
I'm aware. One of my kids named is Shayna. Thank you.
I joined the dev team for Virtual 10. That was my first time on the dev team or playtesting, and it was Eric brought me in when he took over, and I told him, I was like, it'd be nice to have like intermediate superstar abilities that anyone can play, but they're still good, and then have because you have Shayna, who's pretty simple. I'm gonna choke you until you're dead, and then on the opposite end you have Aleister Black, who is
he's got a lot of moving parts going on with him.
He's got a lot of moving parts. He's 100% strategy. He's I call him, he's a thinking man's build. Whereas someone who's relatively new to the game isn't going to be playing Aleister Black.
No.
But they can pick up their buddy Shayna Baszler and learn a thing or two and then do pretty well with it. So that was big into what Eric and I wanted to get into the game.
She does seem very straightforward. It's like it's kind of my kind of. I mean, me, I've never built any amazing decks before the past. I mean, I do get to take some credit where, you know, when Drew came back and did back-to-back championships like that, he took my Revolution Ric Flair deck there each year because that was just a big.
Oh, so that was your fault.
That was my fault. That one, and I abused the hell out of Christy when she got her virtual card. So making her all access. So
You weren't the only one who did that. That's for sure.
No. But he took that. He took my deck and for all access and really abused the hell out of all those antics with her. But then who else we have from this release like that? We have
The Fiend.
I think the Fiend. Fiend is left.
Yeah.
And Bobby Roode, but
Bobby
The Fiend.
Roode.
Correct. The Fiend is next. Yeah.
So
he's been around.
The Fiend was my idea, and I think he was the first one designed for the set. I might be wrong on that.
He
I
was the
think he
first.
might have been one of the first ones announced, if I'm not even mistaken.
Probably. You're probably
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It was The Fiend and Adam Cole were the first two that Eric showed on your podcast.
Gotcha.
So the Fiend, we designed him right around the time of that awful Hell in a Cell match that he had with Seth Rollins, which was not good booking at all. But anyway, so Eric and I had chatted. I had posted my Fiend design before, and most everything stayed the same except his ability. My ability played off of Bray Wyatt's ability, but it was kind of the opposite of it. It wasn't that good. But the idea of his support cards being all the puppets, and when they're successful, you put them into their opponents backstage, and then they would do terrible things to their opponent from the inside. And that idea came from the Fiend's opponents. The puppets would show up in the backgrounds of all the hallway segments in WWE. You'd see like, oh, there's Husky Harris hanging out in the background. So I said, well, they're hanging out in the backstage area with their opponents. So then I just said, you know, what can we do with that? So all of his cards are worded, you know, when you have 8 or more cards in your hand, this happens. Because when it's in their opponent's area, it becomes their card. So the when you have becomes when your opponent has, basically. And then Eric and I discussed, like, what is the Fiend? It's like, he's a monster. He's Jason. He's Michael Myers. Like, he won't die. So we gave him the idea of being able to kind of absorb damage and make it less. So when opponents' move would apply 8 damage or less, he can remove the top 4 of his arsenal from the game. He doesn't take damage, and he ends the turn.
That was
So
much
opponent-
better than the original idea of giving him no cells as setup, which just
Right, yeah. And part
No,
of
thank you.
his ability was your no-cell maneuvers are setups, which, you know,
No.
you know, I packed like 15 in the deck that I made. And it was a little too good. So then we said, all right, we'll make it, you know, they're not setups, but he only has to discard 1. Because in that Hell in a Cell match, he kicked out of everything and he no-sold everything. And he gets Bray Wyatt maneuvers because we didn't want to include like the Wyatt family stuff with him. So the actions and the reversals, unless they're part maneuver hybrids, he doesn't get those. And I don't think there was a ton of tweaking with him.
No, I would say there are 2 major things that come to mind. One was taking some time to make sure that the ability was worded in such a way that it timed out after sustained damage.
Yeah.
That took a few revisions, but we finally got to a point where that happens last, just before you take damage.
Yeah.
And then we just had one last card slot and we fit in Hurt Heal.
Yeah, which I think was Brian's design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible
and
name,
then,
but
and then
that,
Brian designed the card, and it had a relatively generic title, and I said, the title hurt heel would work perfectly for what this card does.
Mhm.
And he was like, oh yeah, that works. He thought we had already used that title for another card.
Oh yeah. But yeah, once he told me we hadn't, I was like, yeah, go run with that. That works.
Also,
I know it was
the
very
Fiend-
popular superstar that people were asking for a lot. So it's
Mhm.
kind of,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think people were pretty happy. People seem to be pretty pleased that he got added this one, right? There's no complaints about
No.
him.
He's by
And
far my
he-
favorite in the set.
he can play his RFG maneuvers that don't have reverse in the title. So if he uses his ability and removes a bash punch, guess what the opponent's getting hit with next turn? It's bash punch.
I think that's why I liked him actually, because I always have the bad luck with maneuver of doom that ends up my damn ringside and ends up removed from the game. I'm like, oh, that's good for him. Okay.
However, to balance that out, he can't recover RFG cards unless it's with a superstar specific effect. So once you lose divine intervention, you're not going to use 10th anniversary to get it back because you can't.
Gotcha. That's pretty smart.
Yeah. And it just kind
Um,
of worked out.
and then last, I guess, this one is Rude.
Yeah, Rude was one of my favorites to play test, to be honest. It was I mean, he's all about one thing, he's all about stacking glorious in your ring. Different effects you get from that. But he was very tanky in a lot of ways too. And I know that's been a theme for this set, but you know, he had the spectacular ring entrances, which we did have to tone down a little bit from what they were in playtesting.
Mhm.
But having that at his disposal ensures that, you know, if he draws a bad hand, he's not stuck with it. And then he has the the ability to prevent people from attacking his hand slightly with his pre-match. He gets the game start, and he gets to disrupt the opponent's ringside pile with what could be a powerful effect if he starts hitting his cards off. It starts off as 1 or 2 cards removed from the game, but as you go on and you start hitting those spots, he could just eventually whittle that ringside pile down, which is also why he got removed from all of the common remove ringside pile from the game cards, such as Lethal NWO Poison and Thrust Neelift. Because Thrust Neelift was on the abusive side with him just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Reporting my cards from the game. That was fun.
Yeah, I think, what was that final total, Scott? It was like 45 cards removed from the game in that game we had.
And I had 10 in my hand, so that should tell you something.
And Bobby Roode, actually, we did a poll. We did a fan vote
Mhm.
where the Raw Deal community got to vote on who would the 10th person in the set be, or whatever the number was.
I remember
And
that
he
poll,
won.
yes. Yeah.
He won,
Yeah.
which
Running away.
yeah, he won by a lot, and I was pretty surprised at that. I was
Yeah.
expecting like
Well,
Daniel Bryan remake.
did you guys give a list? Wasn't it you guys gave a list, or that people can just write their own people in?
We
I think we
created the
both.
list. I do know that.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
who were
gonna
the
see if
other
I
who were
can
the other
find
people
it.
that it could have been?
I know
I
there was
remember Carmella
ahead.
was on the list.
Yeah.
Shane McMahon remake, Best in the World. The Daniel Bryan remake, New People's Champion. Kofi Mania was an option. I
think
think
Naomi was
an
second.
option at that point.
I think she got
Um,
second or something like that.
Mustafa Ali was one of them.
Buddy Murphy, I think, was another
But
option.
I'm
there.
glad Mustafa didn't get it. He's been changed around.
But Bobby Roode ended up winning this poll, which surprised me. But I had a Bobby Roode design already in the fantasy card for him, so I said,
Like,
"All right." That'll
Okay.
work.
That'll
So
work.
the full
You
list
can
was
right,
Shane, Kofi, Daniel Bryan, Murphy, Rude, Ali, and Carmella. Naomi was not actually in the poll.
Okay. Must have been Carmella that was second. I think.
Yeah, it was Rude had 18 votes. Carmella came in with 13th. Shane was 10, and then everybody else was behind that.
Wow.
Interesting.
Finally found it. And at that point, we were only talking about the 8th superstar in the set. We ended up with what, 11?
I think
Okay.
so.
10, I believe.
Yeah.
10. Yeah.
But yeah, the root my original root design was basically just draw extra cards based on the number of glorious in your ring. And that just wasn't that good. So we just kept adding and adding and adding until it worked out.
Mhm.
Is there anybody else we're missing? I feel like we're missing someone. No.
Kyle O'Reilly.
Ah, there we go.
Oh, sure.
But another guy that we talked about, straightforward, discard a card, do a thing. That's what he does.
Him and Alistair are in my opinion, I think probably the two best, the two most powerful in the set. He has just an ungodly amount of recovery that he can just do.
Mhm. I remember they went for what, 3 hours against each other, something like. They
Yeah.
can go.
That's it was John and I we had a couple marathon games and playtesting. We're like, is this good? Is this okay?
And they mostly involved Aleister Black.
Yeah. But Kyle O'Reilly, he's very discard
Uh-oh.
Oh,
a striker submission pro, and when you pro, you can recover.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But I think,
And
you know, when you're trying to attract new players to come in and play virtual, especially those who've never played Raw Deal before, they want to know what this virtual stuff is, because the older product's getting harder to find. As a retailer, as a seller, I know how hard the older products are coming. Prices are skyrocketing. So virtual is a great way to come in, obviously, and if you're new to play. So when you're having these straightforward abilities for people, it's like that, to introduce them, it's a good thing, I think. I think it's a good thing. So, I mean, the black seems very complicated, especially for someone like me. It's just too many moving parts for me, man. I want, here's what I can do, and I just want to go in and just do my shit. That's it.
Yeah. Black's complicated when you're on the other side of him too. Like, what are you doing?
Of course, yeah. What are you doing? So if you're playing against, I mean, I played against guys like Drew and it becomes, and I've played Creed. When Creed moved to California, we played all the time. And these guys have they have such a knowledge base of all these different cards. They have all these moving parts. I go, can you just be honest with me? What the fuck is going on? And let me know, can I play this reversal or not?
Playing against that damn selfie stick.
Sometimes,
No.
Sometimes games become, do everything you're going to do until I tell you to stop.
Exactly, they do. Exactly. I think that pretty much covers most of 11A. Is there anything else about 11A you guys want to discuss?
Just the glorious mustache, I think.
I love how that it started very quickly as a Robert Roode card, and then we're like, wait a minute, let's put on everybody who's had a great mustache in wrestling history.
I said, I know he doesn't need it, but can Rick Rude have this card? And everyone was like, yeah, of course. And then it was like, Iron Sheik had a pretty good mustache.
Yeah. It was part of Cody Rhodes' gimmick for a while.
Did you guys actually have a sit-down discussion discussing who had interesting mustaches?
Those were the first ones that came to mind.
This was all on Discord, if I remember correctly. People just started throwing out ideas. And we're like, no, if we're giving it to him, we have to give it to him, and we have to give this to him.
You're like, on
Fortunately, we cut it off there.
On any given Monday night, Nia Jax might be on. That's pretty funny. What was that?
She's not like most girls.
This is true. Very, very true.
She injures them too many.
That's also very true. So that's released. I guess the reception was pretty good for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, the biggest freak out we had wasn't for V11A, it was for the revisions that came out, specifically Chain, as we mentioned earlier. People had a freak out about that until they started playing with it, and oh, what a surprise! It's not so bad.
I think
always the case.
I think Brian can vouch for me on this one too. I think V11 was the least resisted set we've had released since we've been doing this.
Probably accurate. Might be V6 as well, but this is definitely on the list. Like we could have the conversation, and it would make sense. But
I mean, outside of seeing the virtual stuff that Evan you posted, it's like that. That's kind of what I find out about things as are official because they become up on the virtual Raw Deal Facebook group. Outside of like the early Cole discussions and things like that, it's always a sticker shock, but I haven't heard a peep from anybody really bitching and complaining about anything since they've actually played it now.
Yeah. I also, when I was posting,
which really is it's a testament to your guys' design. Really, I mean, you guys should be commended for that because it's really it's difficult to please the Raw Deal community, as you know.
Yeah. Well, luckily, everyone on the design team has been playing the game for a while, and they're really good at the game, and they have such a great knowledge of the game that when someone says, I have this crazy idea for the Fiend, and then everyone else goes, oh, but he can abuse this card, and he can abuse that card, and you get like a list of 25 cards. You're like, all right, let's
All right.
change it so he doesn't abuse those cards.
Glad I mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets pretty easy to file off the rough edges when you have the amount of experience that we have available to us.
Mhm.
And you know, as far as the reaction goes, when I posted the spoilers, I wanted to spoil kind of the more impactful cards early to give people more time to digest them. So that's why, like, you know, the Fiend was spoiled pretty early because one, he was finalized early, but two, he has a, you know, an ability that at first glance, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna win every game. And then they
He doesn't.
get it in their hands and it works out fine.
It always cracks me up, these guys who bitch and complain about certain superstars. They're gonna be like, they're just, it's broken, it's broken. It's like, really, how many tournaments have you played where that particular superstar has won?
Gargano. Sorry.
Right, yeah, right.
Let's not go
Oh,
there.
Johnny Gargano.
Gargano is huge in Scotland.
He's huge in Scotland.
He's got to do it himself.
This particular city, this particular town on a certain street. He's huge.
Oh, and we
So
can talk about Johnny Gargano.
now you guys have got 11B coming.
Hmm.
Do we have an official release date? I'm kind of in the cloud about that one, so I'm not sure.
I think by the
So-
time this video comes out, it will have been released.
Yes.
Guys, I could have this done tonight.
Oh,
Theoretically,
If you really
yet.
wanted me to do it, I could have it done tonight.
Damn it. Wait out here.
with the caveat that
Barring,
we are filming this before release, the intended release date is November 30th.
Yeah. barring John finding any rules breaking text, which I think
Like
he
I did
probably
earlier
would've-
today.
I think he probably would have found.
Yes.
Because the last thing that happens is John looks at the text from a rules guru point of view, and then we start putting together the files, you know, the download links. So right now we're in the John going over everything with a fine tooth comb phase.
Speaking of,
I
then,
think we're actually
John,
past that phase,
Okay.
unless something
Speak-
else comes up that I just missed.
speaking of, so this is, how many releases have you been the official rules guru now?
I believe the handoff was just about the same time as the release of E10.
So this is your second, and upcoming is gonna be your third release.
Yeah, this will be my third. V11 was officially my third release because of the Then Now Forever set.
Gotcha. How much time did it take you to have to absorb all this new stuff, apply it to the old stuff? I mean, what was a learning curve on this for you?
Well, it's interesting. I've always had a kind of the mindset of I want to understand the rules and I want to be able to explain them as simply as possible because it's the only way I'm ever going to get to play half of these superstars. I know for a fact that if I didn't make it, you know, a big thing to understand all the interactions, I was going to just start messing things up. I'm not as good of a game player as I am a rules person, to be perfectly honest. So I've been in the forums for any number of years, explaining things as best I could, helping out. And when Nate decided it was, you know, getting to be time to retire, he came to me and said, look, I think that you have the capacity to pick this up and run with it. Would you be interested? And
Yeah, he
I
gives you,
was very
yeah,
happy
when I
to do
talked to
it.
him, he's giving you some really high praise like that. Like, this is the guy that I know is going to take and go.
And I certainly don't want to disappoint him in any way.
And, you know, as far as raw deal rules go, I mean, raw deal rules and raw deal logic are some of the most, in raw deal English, are three of the most confusing things you will find in any game ever. So the fact that John has to filter through and reference all these different rules that have been handed down before us, even the sins of classic raw deal.
I mean, we're
it's a
talking
job-
20 years of gaming now here.
it's a job that I would not want.
Not all of it well written,
Yeah.
And you have
unfortunately.
to explain them to Kevin in Allentown.
Don't get me started, please.
Don't get me started.
Well,
What I
I
will
will
say
say-
is I was a prospect researcher and I work as a data administrator in my full-time job. So translating things from other forms of logic to human logic is kind of my job to begin with. So it helps being able to start from that perspective and say, well, this is what I do normally anyway.
But what's different so for is now you not only have to understand all the previous rules and how cards interact and work with each other, but you guys in this team now have developed new different types of cards now that are completely unique and new to the game. And so you have to take these new cards and then you guys have to reference all the old stuff to see that nothing got broken, there's no loopholes. It's got to be it's got to be tedious, man.
I will say you will see that's a lot of the reasons that the changes that I have tried to bring into the game have been simplifying wordings for that reason. Try to get things as consistent and regular as possible. Starting with V11, we're just using the term RFG instead of removed from the game or removed from the game or removed from the game area because everybody calls it that anyway. But there are so many cards that exist that are worded very particularly that we had to include in the actual keyword definition. This functions as the longer term in all cases. So if something looks for the word remove, it will see RFG and go, okay, that still counts. We had that problem in V10 when we switched to location search. There was some discussion about, do we want to make this a wrestling specific term? But the cards that already existed look for the word search. So keeping that term in all of the cards, A, meant that you could tell what it was doing just from looking at the word, and B, it would make sure that those other cards didn't break.
Gotcha. That's not a job that I would like to have.
And one advantage with John is that he's an active player. And I don't think Nate has played in a little while, at least.
I don't think so. It's been some years, yeah.
So to have an active player who not only plays against the developmental guys, but plays against other guys on through like Discord games on Octagon, he'll see something and be like, "Oh, that's a loophole we have to close."
Yeah.
So that's a big advantage of John.
Well, that's something I don't care to ever want to be a part of. But moving forward here, so with V11B, that's supposed to be coming out, you said on the 30th, like that. I mean, what can we talk about that hasn't already been kind of spoiled?
I think one of the things we did a lot in this set is, we've struggled a bit in the past with tag teams that are just mishmash guys that end up succeeding, and we end up making a superstar right before they break up. And that's kind of been one of our struggles in the past. I think one of the things we're doing for V11B is instead of making superstars, we're making them as factions, which has its own positives and negatives to that. I think one of the examples that I tested personally was the Breezango faction of Tyler Breeze and Fandango.
Yeah, I just saw the previews for those ones, the spoilers for those. Like that, it looked like. Again, I don't know who's doing the artwork. Is it still Creed now doing the artwork for that stuff now? Because the artwork is beautiful.
For the most part, him and one of our other guys who I think wishes to remain anonymous.
Yeah, sound of it.
But yeah, I mean, that was one of the big things. I think there's like 4 factions in here that are in this set. It's the DIY, which is Gargano and Ciampa. There was Breezango, which we just mentioned. There's
The bar.
Camp Cornette.
Sheamus and Cesaro, and the last one's Camp Cornette, which
yes,
is Owen, Yoko, Bulldog, and Vader from their WWF time.
Gotcha.
So in general, the cards, the superstars we decided to support for 11B were more or less decided from the superstar rankings that kind of popped out of nowhere on the Discord. A couple guys made a spreadsheet of every superstar in Classic and Virtual Raw Deal,
I remember I saw that.
and
Yeah.
and they said, guys, rate these guys 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, and see like who's the best and who's the worst and who's whatever. So we looked at the bottom half of that list and said, oh yeah, Mikey sucks. Let's give him some support. Not the whole Spirit Squad, because the Spirit Squad as a whole is pretty good, but Mikey in particular sucks. Lacey Evans, who was another one that we kind of dropped the ball on for Then Now Forever. We gave her some support. All the Then Now Forever one people get support, but Cornette and Pete Dunne are both really good, so they didn't need like extensive.
The same level, yeah.
Yeah. Pete Dunne got cards that are flavorful, that make the deck feel more like Pete Dunne.
Yeah.
Lacey Evans got cards that make the deck feel more like a functioning Raw Deal deck.
Yeah. But like, Cactus Jack is at the moment, not that great. He gets ECW stuff, but compared to say Mankind is really good. Mankind gets a free move, and he gets all these other effects, and he gets no sell maneuver, whereas Cactus Jack was like, I get ECW foreign objects.
I get easily reversible cards. Yay!
Yeah.
And Cactus Jack made a pretty big mark in the business. So we're like, he should be bumped up. He should go up.
Yeah.
So that was an easy one.
Yeah. Speaking of superstars who were an easy choice to build back up, Vicky Guerrero.
Which Nate has apologized for on
yes.
Tony's show.
And we will hopefully make it so that no further apologies are required. But yeah, Vicky, you could see the core of what he was going for, but in the meta that we had where actions were not as popular, the ability didn't come into play frequently enough. So what's the first thing you can do with that? We'll open it up so that you can use it on maneuvers too. So now under specific circumstances, Vicky can use her ability on her opponent's maneuvers. The other problem that I remember having, and the other reason I never actually built her, is that if Vicky plays something, that's her response. His card is successful, but he can stop yours. So what's the fix for that? Well, if he stops your card, you should still be able to stop his. So we took a look at that and said, well, maybe this will help. This will make her feel more balanced, more competitive. So she can still interrupt you, but if you block the interruption, she doesn't have to just sit there and take whatever you threw at her.
So is 11B basically, there's no new superstars.
No, 11B is
It's
entirely
all
support for superstar specifics.
A lot of it too.
Oh, yes.
How many cards are we expecting in this set?
125?
I think it's the
Something
same
like that,
number
yeah.
of V11A, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think it's.
If
I think we made them the same.
If I remember correctly, when I went through the image files 2 or 3 nights ago, it was 125 images in the
Yeah.
folder.
That sounds right. And I think we added 2 at the end to just kind of round it to that number.
I think, for my opinion, there's 3 superstars that benefit the most from the new 11B support. Heat Seekers get a nice boost. They're a legit, really good deck now. Yokozuna gets some ridiculous cards.
He's
and
a monster now.
He feels
a
like
monster.
the monster champion he was in the 90s.
He's the monster that he should be and that he was around, 1993.
Now my note says that he gets 8 cards.
Yeah, because he gets some of that Cornette.
He gets the Cornette stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
gets-
in the,
Cornette
he's in
love,
the Camp Cornette faction,
3, 4,
and then
yeah.
he gets some of his
5
own.
cards from Camp Cornette. And
Yeah.
So he gets 9. He gets the 5 cards from Camp Cornette and 4 cards specifically for himself.
Yeah.
Interesting.
However, he gets added arsenal space to fit all those cards.
Mhm.
And the superstar that might benefit the most from 11B is Baron Corbin.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Baron Corbin, upon release, was kind of meh, but now that his RMS maneuvers are basically chain and heat, and he gets the recovery effect, and he doesn't get the negative effects from any of those traits, he's pretty good now.
I just tested Corbin last night, and he is fun.
Yeah.
And I never
Which
thought
I
we'd say
think
that
very
about
few
Corbin.
people would say about Baron Corbin on television.
On
was
the
that,
nose,
Scott?
yeah.
I was saying the same thing.
And my notes say like Viscera got some help.
Yes, Visser got some very nice help.
Yeah.
I am scrolling through these
I'd
things
probably
now.
say he'd be number 4 on that list if you were talking about the
I would
people
put
who
him
got the
number,
most help.
I'd put him number
Probably.
5, brother.
Well, there's
Ooh,
that too.
Oh yeah.
I see.
So-
I mean, I don't have a whole list, but
yeah,
I see like
Viscera-
even Renee
Viscera
Dupree
got a
some help.
good card to get him started, which he desperately needed. He's got more toys. The one fun trick that I can tell you that he's got off of one of his new cards is if your opponent plays a maneuver, you can turn it into one of the setups that your setups reverse.
Interesting.
So you can say, okay, your maneuver is now Irish Whip. I reverse it with Irish Whip. Now it's my turn and I'm playing a card that follows up Irish Whip.
Wow,
Mhm.
that could be fun.
And I
And
don't
I think
think
that'd be the first time Irish Whip has been used as a reversal in
I don't know,
At
17
least
years?
12
17,
years.
18
yeah.
years.
in my 20 years of playing Raw Deal, the only setup that was reversed by a setup was a gut wrench, and that was in a sealed deck tournament. And I think I was Sable, and my opponent was Tori Wilson. So
It's Divas Overload era, so there's the
Mhm.
problem. You also got, I see in my notes, I have Renee Dupree.
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
Maybe.
Renee had a lot of problems functionally in the meta in that he just didn't have the reversal power to compete. And I think the 2 cards he got will fix that quite definitively. One of them is a 0-4 ace reversal that can go to the bottom of his deck that also happens to be a trademark finisher. So if you don't have any more aces, you could just pop them in the head with it. The other one is a backstage that will allow him to recycle non-hybrid reversals from his ring on a more consistent basis. It modifies another card he got in Virtual 1, be able to trigger more than once a game.
Yeah.
And that's going to help him save a lot of his reversal situations where, I only get one once is enough, but my opponent's FBI. So now
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
And
so
he
some of
gets
these
back
guys-
reversals as though they're not face or heel. So he gets
True.
that once and sloppy and manager and the rakes. And he doesn't have to pick and choose. Well, he has to pick and choose between shocking interference and Olay because fan favorite and
Sure.
cheater. But
and
he gets the counters from V11.
that's it. I
Mhm.
was just gonna say the counter reversals help him a lot.
Yeah,
So
he's going to be much better.
11B is going to introduce, like, not every superstar, like, Yokozuna's getting, you said 9 cards. Sounds
Mhm.
like Renee's getting 2 cards.
2
So
cards, yeah.
Yes.
some guys only, I mean, everybody get 1 or 2 cards? Is there a number?
There's a lot of people who get 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are
Not-
300.
The-
There are well over 300 superstars in the game. We could not fit everybody onto 125 cards.
And some people don't need more cards.
Well, that's
Right.
what I get that. But I'm saying that's how many
the on-
how
The
many
only
superstars
cons-
are getting support?
Oh,
That's
geez.
a
Not
good
sure.
question.
I'd
'Cause
say
we'd have to add up the multi logos.
7,
Yeah, by the time we added that up, it would be out
And-
beyond 2 sets from now.
50.
conservatively, I'd
Probably-
say 50.
Interesting.
That's conservative. I'd say on the high end, 70 or 80.
Well,
Oh,
considering
maybe. Yeah.
every DX member got 1.
Right.
They
yeah.
all got the same card, but
Yeah, but they still got 1 card.
Right. If we're
Yeah.
counting logos, that's a higher number than cards for these superstars.
Well, because
only-
you have to support those guys too, I guess. So I mean, you guys are probably just focusing on a particular superstar who happens to share a lot of.
The only
So-
consistency is that the then now forever superstars each got 4 more cards. I think that's the only consistency across the board.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
they started with 4 cards. So
But then you have guys who were not, who just got what they needed. Viscera got 4 cards. Classic Hollywood Hulk Hogan got 4 cards. But we were working towards a specific thing with with DX. There is a specific card of theirs that doesn't work the way it used to, and this card specifically fixes that so that it is worth playing again.
Gotcha.
That being, I've got 2 words for you.
But it also gave Triple H an action reversal that he never had.
Isn't that funny that all the years of Raw deal, Triple H never got an action reversal?
That is
The Rock has 0 backstage cards, which is pretty surprising.
Wow, that's pretty. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really need one.
I just
Again,
found that out.
It's nothing
not too long
else
ago.
ever again.
This is true. Anybody from Premier needs nothing ever again.
But yeah,
The only thing I could see giving them something that wildly changes their card pool, I don't think we're ever going to see a card for a Premier Superstar that is purely additive.
They're all pretty much gone at this point now, right? I mean, Jericho's in the other company, but like the other 6 of them are not wrestling anymore.
And they all have
Pretty much.
remakes.
True.
Well, that's different. Yeah. A remake is a completely different superstar, though. I'm talking about like original Undertaker is probably never getting a virtual card again because he really doesn't need it.
Though speaking of remakes of The Undertaker getting cards.
Yes. We did
that
give
happened.
one to two of them actually.
2, yeah.
And then one of those is multi-logo.
Yeah. One goes to both the Phenom and the Last Outlaw. The other one, I believe, is Last Outlaw only.
Yes,
Plus, he got the throat cutting taunt from Virtual 11A.
And so did the Dangerous Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and speaking of Hogan getting 4 cards, he actually gets 5 because he got the title belt air guitar from 11A.
Right, the title belt guitar,
Ah.
which was long overdue.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's pretty interesting stuff. It's almost like a mini version of V1.
It definitely feels a lot like V1,
Yeah, much smaller scale, but agreed.
Yeah. So they're really just focusing on the guys that really needed the help. Because again, like we said, a lot of guys don't need help, especially those premier guys. And
yeah. And if we can emphasize anything from this podcast for the people who are listening, it's continue to give us your feedback through that spreadsheet that we talked about earlier, through any kind of feedback. Like, if you think somebody needs help, tell us why. We are listening.
We do listen. We do listen.
Yeah.
We might not always
think you're wrong, but we will happily listen to you.
Yeah.
It sounds like 11B is really addressing people's concerns for certain superstars, in addition to ones that you probably already had on your plate to begin with, like that, I'm sure.
There's also, we had to do a balancing act for some guys like Ciampa and Gargano. We knew we wanted to get DIY in the game. However, Ciampa, if we give him some support, could go really overboard and be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And Gargano is kind of the same way, but less. So it's like we need to make Gargano a little bit better, but while keeping Ciampa kind of where he is with the same card.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had something along the same lines with the bar where Cesaro needed more than Sheamus did after the revision to Sheamus that just hit. So everything that we did, we had to make sure that the cards didn't do exactly the same thing for both of them.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, because one guy who doesn't need the help.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any particular... Are there any non-superstar specific stuff coming out in this one? Or are all superstar specific?
This is all superstar
V11B
specific.
is all superstar specific.
Okay.
Yes.
Just the support end of the set, basically.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Is there anything that might be coming out, like, you don't know about? Nobody really knows about? Any surprises?
Now that you mention it, guys, should I do the honors on this?
Yeah,
Sure.
let's do the Steve Jobs one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing. The Raw Deal Players Committee is happy to announce that we are producing a Then Now Forever 2 set. And we are also ready to announce the first superstar that will appear in the Then Now Forever 2 set. And his name is Hardcore Holly.
Interesting.
Now, Hardcore Holly, a lot of old Raw dealers might remember the first half of his ability. Once during any turn, you may remove any number of cards in your hand from the game and then draw the same number of cards. That part was chapter and verse from Comic Images. They once spoiled the Hardcore Holly thing, and now everyone can see it. Now, the second part is new. You can pack Good Golly Miss Molly Holly, but you cannot pack Denville, New Jersey, or Dallas, Texas. Now, Good Golly Miss Molly Holly, there's two. There's an original, which is a Spike Dudley action reversal, and the throwback is a Molly Holly maneuver reversal, non-trademark finisher maneuver. Holly also has his logo on a card from Molly Holly's set called Holly Family Value. So right there's two cards that he's already getting from previous sets.
Nice. People have been clamoring for this guy for so long.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably the most requested guy that we get.
Not that we
yeah.
entirely
Again,
understand why, but he is.
Yeah, he's definitely up there.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I understand, but you're right. He gets asked for all the time, all the time. So it's nice to finally see him. So like, it's a beautiful looking card too. So, I mean, and how did this play well? How you guys in the play testing? How did it play?
If I would say that he plays a lot like his in-ring personality. You know, he hits like a truck, but he can definitely burn himself out if he's not careful.
He hits hard and early, but if you're not careful, he's going to run out of gas.
Yeah. It's just, I'm sure people are going to be happy to see this. I'm sure they're really going to be happy. Now, is this coming? This is for 11B?
This is the time.
This is
what?
TNF2.
TNF2. Okay. When is that going to be possibly released? You guys, have you announced like a particular release date for that yet?
We have not yet. We're looking to kind of do this when the set is play tested and properly balanced. It's kind of a cop out, but it's ready when it's ready. I know Freed has that in his signature a lot, but we want to make sure that these people are balanced and they, Holly's only going to get a 4-card set just like the last TNF. So it's a little bit trickier to kind of get the power level right on those cards. So when we have an official release date, we will come and say it. But as of right now, it's when it's ready.
Cool. And can you say how many superstars are going to be in that?
I don't remember off the top of my head, actually. Anyone else remember?
Hardcore Holly and others.
And others.
So Then Now Forever is a superstar then, which is typically like 90s, like Hardcore Holly. Now, which is usually a current person or relatively current. And then Forever, last set was Pete Dunne. This set might not be an NXT or a young person. It might be maybe a legend, perhaps.
A little older.
The reason Pete Dunne was the Forever back then was Eric's idea was Christmas, past, present, and future.
Sure.
So future sounded good for Pete Dunne. And then I said, well, WWE's signature is Then, Now, Forever. So let's use that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But WWE meant then, now, and then forever being, continuity. And what better continuity is there than a legend?
Sure. Well, that looks pretty cool. I mean, I'm excited to see it at Hardcore Holly in the game, first off, just so I can have everybody just kind of shut up about it.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yes.
but now he's not going to be as good as they want him to be.
Of course
No,
not.
of course not.
I mean,
Never
it's like you got to get Norman Smiley in, man. I freaking love Norman Smiley. I'm like, if this guy had as much attention about him in his days, he'd be still around.
Yeah.
We'll make
I don't know about that. He was in his late 40s then.
I know. I'm just saying. So, but it's interesting to see those, and I'm happy to see him in there, so like that. But for me, it's a lot of eye-opening stuff. For you guys talking a lot about 11A, because I didn't really follow anything really for 11A other than seeing the spoilers that you put out. So I didn't know a whole lot about it. So now I have a lot more. I'm like, hey, maybe I know that black is definitely not my thing I want to play because that's just not my style. So like that. I'll go for some of the more straight shooter stuff like that.
11A was funny because it kind of happened. Development of it kind of happened in two parts. because it happened. I don't know, maybe in like January when we first were like, all right, let's talk about this, and then Eric had to step away for a little bit, and he brought Creed in.
Mhm.
So in between that, there was this kind of lull, and then COVID hit, so everyone was just kind of, the world was just kind of weird. However, COVID was the best thing that happened for playtesting with Octagon,
For you
Mhm.
guys,
For you
right?
guys.
Because guys like me who didn't work for a couple months, all I had was Octagon, and I said, let's
Mhm.
play test, let's bang these superstars out and see what happens.
Yeah, I will say COVID has done a number on my availability to go to Allentown, but it has done the opposite number on my availability for Octagon. So
Why did you guys
It's
split
changed
it?
things a lot.
Why is 11 split into two? Just because
We
too
wanted
big
so
of
that
a
it would
set?
get out.
Yeah, we wanted to get the superstars and the non-specifics out and kind of give the community more toys to work with.
plus it's easier when you split the focus to get it,
Mhm.
get the half done, and then you can deal with the other half.
I was gonna say, yeah, putting out the
Specifics
fires
can
quickly.
be a nightmare to test.
Yeah.
So
How
just
far
having
you
them
how far are you guys into testing 11B?
We're pretty much
80%,
done.
if
Pretty
not
much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty much
we're
done.
about to hit.
I hope so. When they ship it out. by
Oh,
then.
hopefully enough to be ready in 3 days.
3
from
days,
this
good.
recording.
So yeah, just making sure. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool guys. Interesting. So I hope to be talking more about some virtual stuff coming out for other stuff. I mean, when that new set comes out, which then Now Forever 2 comes out, definitely love to get you guys back on again and talk about that and what's included, the thought process there, and talk some more Bob Holly.
Oh yeah.
I think the people will be happy with Then
Mhm.
Not Forever 2.
There may be some other topics along with Bob Holly, but I'm sure
I'm
we will
sure-
have
I'm
a lot
sure there
more to
might
say
be.
about him.
If we talk this long about Ball Holly, I don't think Scott's gonna make it.
No, no. I don't think I'll
It'll be
make it. I'm
interesting
just
to see
gonna
what
kind of
happens at the end of that conversation, to be honest.
like, oh, so sorry, I forgot to hit the record button. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. I know it's late there where you guys are at. You guys are all East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's only 9:30 for me.
Not too bad.
Nah,
Yeah.
but I got a 22-month-old like that. Probably is craving my attention right now. So,
Yeah, understandable.
but I appreciate you guys' time, man. I really do. And I hope to have this ready to go. You let me know, Brian, when you want me to have this put up, and I'll have it done for you, man.
Absolutely will do.
All right, guys.
And
I
Tony,
appreciate.
thank you for doing all these videos.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes, please.
it's made a lot of, we all love this game, and these videos have been really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's for me. If you've seen any of my previous ones, it's me. It was when COVID hit when I started doing it, and I was kind of like, oh well, I don't really need to throw the VelaCards name out there anymore. Really, I mean, it's if you're playing the game, people I think kind of know who VelaCards is. I've been doing it a long time, but for me, it was to get over my fear of being in front of a camera, help control my speech, and also just to provide content when there was nothing else going on. And it just so happened like, oh, COVID hit. People are going to play their game again. Okay. Because inventory is hard to keep in stock. So virtual stuff is always good for people, I think. It's just the game is at an all-time high when it comes to like its value. Yeah.
I think the Discord just passed 350 members, which is
Nice.
Definitely did.
Is that
more
good?
than I would expect. Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
For a game that's been dead for how many
Yeah.
years,
Since 2007.
Dead. You saw my wonderful sit down talking about Raw Deal being dead with
Yeah.
You should have had a tournament with 350 people in it. That should say something.
yeah.
According to some people, the game dies every time I release a spoiler. So
Of course. It's another nail in the coffin. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, I hear
This
Axel
game has
saying
been
sometimes I
dying
feel
since
like I'm
2000.
dead horse. Mhm.
Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Let's get together again when you guys have the next release coming.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Happy to do
Awesome.
it.
Thank you. Happy to
thank you,
meet you.
Tony.
We are out.